Hi, everybody. Welcome. Today, this is Figma for EDU, Advanced Prototyping, Teaching with Figma Design. We're going to get started in just a moment. So just to give people the opportunity to join. So if you need to go grab a quick coffee or a quick snack, feel free to do so. I got my coffee right here. Okay, I am joined by Alex, that is also on the Figma for EDU team. Also, I'm joined by Lauren. I saw Lauren just hopped in here. As you join us, feel free to let us know in the chat where you are joining in from. So I'm coming in from Rochester, New York. So here, make sure you set your chat to everybody. We got Orlando in the house. We got Chicago in the house. We got Montreal, Miami, Nigeria, ooh, Brooklyn, baby, DC, London, Paris, France, Stockholm. I love to see where our community comes in from, just to see where everybody is in the world. And thank you, because I know some of those times are not convenient, but thanks for joining us here today. I guarantee you we're going to be learning some stuff together. We're going to be working in Figma. Today, we're going to talk about advanced prototyping. And as I just mentioned, we're going to get started in about 2 more minutes. Just give people the opportunity to chime in. Make sure that when you post in that webinar chat that you are setting the chat to everybody so we can see where you are coming from. You will also notice that Alex is posting in the chat that there is a file for today's workshop. If you head on over to figma.com/@education, actually, I might have to republish this one. If you head on over to figma.com/@education, you should be able to, let me just make sure that I make it available for everybody. There we go. It is now published on figma.com/@education. And there is an advanced prototyping file. This is going to be a start file so you can follow along as we are working, and learning together. So once again, I'm joined by Alex. Well, my name is Miggy. I'm a designer for education here at Figma. Alex is a manager for Figma for EDU. You can find us both on Twitter or X. I don't know what it's called anymore, but I'm at Miggy and you have Alex_Figma EDU. You can follow us to find out more about events and content that we make to help you better understand working with Figma and FigJam for the classroom scenarios. So just so you all know, this session is being recorded. Make sure, I mentioned this before, that you set your Zoom chat to everybody. And as always, please be kind. So if you want to find out a little bit more about Figma's code of conduct, head on over to figma.com/code-of-conduct. So when you're engaging in the chat and when you're talking with other people, we do ask that you are respectful of the presenters up here and everybody that's joining us today, as well as please refrain from sharing any links in the chat. So no LinkedIn profile chats. We greatly appreciate it. Okay, so yes, this session is being recorded. I'm already seeing people asking, can we access the recording later? We promise it's being recorded. I'm just double checking right now. I see the little red dot going. So you can rest assured this is being recorded, will be available, and we will get that out to you. So if you might be wondering what this is Figma for EDU. Figma and FigJam, our whiteboarding tool, are free for students and educators. You can head on over to figma.com/education. And there, if you are a university student, if you are a boot camp student, if you are an educator at the university level, you can get the free pro team tiers. If you are middle school or under, you might have to check out the Figma K-12 offering. It's a little bit different. It's not what we refer to as self-serve. The education pro teams, anyone can go and sign up. You register, you verify, and you can make that available. However, if you are in a middle school or high school district, you are going to have to work that out at that level. So if you are university, if you are boot camp, if you are in any kind of online experience where you're learning product design, human computer interaction, what you can do is sign up for Figma, verify your education status. And here's the important part that actually matters very much today. You need to create an education team. The advanced prototyping features that we're going to be outlining and working with today will not show up properly if you you are not in an education team. So you want to make sure that that's working. You'll notice that this file that I have is in my published community files, which is an education team. So if your file is in the drafts, these features won't work for you. So create the education team, put that file on here, and you will have free access to this pro feature. Okay. All right. So just a little bit more, we run these monthly workshops often. You can find out more at figma.com/events. We host them free for the Figma for Education community. So then that way you can build the skills and find the support that you needed, for design, for development, for all things product design. All right, so let's see if there's any questions. A couple things that I do want you all to know. You can find this file that I'm currently working in, right? So this file, all of these links can be found at figma.com/@education. And Alex is also showing it. So you can go right here. When you click on that file, you can open this directly into your own Figma, and this will be your file. So if you want to follow along, right, there's a lot to cover today, you can follow along, but you will be in your own file. So feel free to make any marks, any notes, or anything that you may have there. All right, so we're going to get started. We have a ton to cover today. This is going to be a little bit more advanced. Once again, we are talking about prototyping in Figma. And what prototyping is a way that it allows you to test your designs. You can find a previous workshop, Prototyping 101, where we really dig into some of the granular basics of prototyping. And I'm going to show you what a simple prototype looks like. I'm going to walk you through some of the very basics of that very quickly. So then this way you have a good baseline before we fully get into working with some of the advanced features that we just made available about a month ago. So here, I'm going to click over into prototype mode. The first shortcut key I'm going to show you, you'll see there's page 2 over here on the left in the interface. We're going to go into basic prototyping. And in here, you'll see I have a section. In this section, I have a couple frames. I'm actually going to remove that extra. Oops, I undid that one. I'm going to remove the flow that I have here. There we go. I'm just going to remove that flow. Let's delete you. And I'm going to click on this home screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this prototype. Now, we have a new way to preview prototypes. If you select a frame, I'm going to press Shift Spacebar, and that's going to let me see a test of my prototype, right? You're not going to see the little phone frame around it, but I can come in here and I can actually test this prototype. And if you haven't yet really worked with prototypes, what they allow you to do is create a truly interactive design. You can bring your designs to life. And you'll see that this interface is created with shapes, basic icons, some imagery, and it's used to kind of like represent what you might see when you're building out an app. So you want to test your designs, you want to test your assumptions, you want to put things together in a way that works. You'll see these little arrows are kind of interconnecting everything. So let's kind of briefly overview how that works. Prototypes work when you have a frame in Figma, right? I'm going to just draw a shape inside of this frame. So I'm just going to draw this rectangle, and you'll notice that I'm able to move it around. I'm just going to snap it over here. So this is a start frame. You get a frame by pressing the F key. You can draw this out, right? And then that's a frame. So this is a frame. I double clicked on it. I called it start, and we have a rectangle shape. You'll see the shapes are over here. When you press that R key, it's going to give you that rectangle. Now I can name this rectangle by hitting Command R. And when I hit Command R, you'll notice over here, its representation in the layers panel is now highlighted. I can name that. You want to make sure you have consistent naming when you're working in this. So in this instance, you definitely want to name your layers. Here, I'm going to name this rectangle. I'm just going to call this button. It's kind of an abstraction of what a button can be. And then over here on this next frame, I'm going to copy it, Command C, Going to click on this frame, Command V, and we're just going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to extend the size of it. I'm going to select it. I'm going to come over here to the design panel, prototype panel, design panel, prototype panel. Press Shift E, and Shift E will take you between both of them. So the Shift key E will swap back and forth. Here in this second frame, I can select that and I could change the color. So what I want to do is I have a beginning frame, I have an end frame. I want to create a relationship between them. I can do so in prototype mode. So I press Shift E, and when I'm in prototype mode, I engage with the elements that are on the canvas a little bit differently. Here I can click that plus key and I can drag this interaction noodle over. You can see I have just kind of a graphical representation of it there on my canvas. So I can create this connection between the frames. So when I perform an action on this rectangle, which is an on-click interaction, I'm going to navigate over to that end frame. So in this instance, I can also choose how I want it to transition over. So I can choose that. You'll see right here, all the interaction details. Here's my interaction. What is the event that I want to happen? I'm going to navigate over to another frame. I'm going to choose a destination to where it goes to. And then here, I'm going to have a bit of a transition. I'm going to choose this to be Smart Animate. And I'm going to come down here, and this is going to be my favorite type of curve. I call this my interaction design curve. Basically, what's happening here is it speeds up and it slows down. I usually put in the values 0.8, comma, 0.2, comma, here we go, hold on, 0.8, comma, 0, comma, 0.2, comma, 1. And I will copy and I'll paste that if you are following along. But essentially, I have a point that is 80% and 0 on this graph, and then I have a 20% and 1 on this graph, and it gives you a nice animation. Let's give that a preview, and you'll see when I click, we get this nice robust animation, and I can drag that back and get another on-click event. It's going to start. And once again, this is just a review. We're just kind of talking about how this happens. And if this is brand new to you and this you feel that I'm going relatively fast, you can check out the Prototyping 101 on YouTube. You can click on it right here and actually watch that video live. So if this is not review for you, feel free to check that out. And once again, I just want to highlight, the depth with which you can kind of create some interactions. So this is basic prototyping. We're going to start talking about the next level of prototyping. With basic prototyping, we can click on boxes and we can navigate to frames. And that can be a very limiting. Oftentimes, when you're designing apps, when you're designing for interaction design, when you're designing products, you need to work with data. You need to work with information. So Figma has come out with a new feature that is known as variables. Variables are great on their own, and what they allow you to do is create more dynamic text. When you think about an interaction, when you think about an app, when you think about making it much more realistic, you need to think about and consider the dynamic nature of it. You want to populate it with new information. So that is where variables comes in. So I'm going to walk you through very quickly how to access variables and which variables we are going to use to make a more rich and interactive prototype. So this is where the advanced comes from when we talk about advanced prototyping. Now, some of the content that I'm covering here today, there's another recorded video that you can check out. It's called Using Variables in Prototypes 101. I'm going to just reference that as well. So in the event that you're watching this content and you want to more deeply understand how to use these variables within the context of Figma, feel free to check that video out. And I believe we can kind of send that as well. So once again, these videos are located in the file. You can check it out at Figma's YouTube, youtube.com/Figma Design. I'm posting these here for reference, so you can check them out later. And just so you know that there's more review and we unpack those concepts a little bit more in depth, because you know what, it's pretty complex. So let's talk variables. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to type this nice and big, variables, and I can never spell it. variables. There we go. I'm going to press the K key and make that nice and big. Variables. So in Figma, we currently have 4 different types of variables that you can use. I'm going to click on my canvas. I'm going to come over here to the right. You're going to see that in the design panel, under here, there's this local variables option. To see this option, you click on the canvas, right? Anywhere there isn't something. If I clicked on this object, I'm not going to see it. I'm going to click on the canvas. I'm going to come over here, click local variables, and it's going to bring up this interface. When you haven't yet created a variable, you're not going to see anything, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create our first variable if you haven't yet made one. So I'm going to click that little plus button, and it's going to give me an option to create a color, a number, a string, or a Boolean. So the first one we're going to do, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to create a Boolean value. Now, a Boolean variable is just on or off, true or false. So here we can give that variable a name. So I'm just going to call this, let's say, layer underscore on. So I'm giving the variable a name, and I'm going to associate a value with it. So I could turn it on and set it to true, or I could turn it off and set it to false. So what I can do with that is I can take an object that I have here on my canvas, right? So this is a component. Let me actually grab from this other file. Oh, I don't have it there, but that's okay. I'm going to hop over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to associate that Boolean variable to be on or off to this layer's visibility. So when I select this layer, I'm going to come over here to the right, and I'm going to look at the layer panel, and you'll see I can turn it on and off. I can hide and view that layer. And that little eyeball over there, when I right click on that eyeball, I can actually associate a variable with it. So when I click on that, it'll say layer underscore on, right? So when I click on it, you'll see that that variable is now associated with this layer. And when I come over here to my variables pane, I can turn it on and off. So what I want you to do is to see the relationship between this variable here and how it represents on the canvas. And the reason that that's important is that when you're prototyping with variables, you can control things like this, right? You can set interactions. So instead of navigating to a frame, you can also set a variable on or off, right? And that's just the first value that we have. Next, let's create another variable, and let's create a number variable. So here, let's call this number. We're going to use it to update the, let's say that this is an item in a shopping cart interface. I can give this number a value, and I'll just say, total underscore, in underscore cart, or like I'll just say items underscore in underscore cart. I want to give the variable a name that has some meaning. And if you're working with other people, you want to make sure that they understand what it is that they're working on as well. So here, I'm going to associate this value. So if I set this value to 5, right? And I want to have this text field that I have over here, right? See this text field? This is just a piece of text, right? It's enter bold 24. And you'll notice that because I now have variables for this file, I can come over here. I can click on that little hex icon and I can apply the variable. You'll notice that when I hover over it, it says apply variable. And when I click on it, it's asking me, it already knows. It's like, oh, I know what you're trying to do. And let's say if I had a lot, I can search, I can say items in cart, and it'll surface it. So I can choose 5, and you'll see that that is now 5. So when I increase it in this little data table, think of it like an Excel spreadsheet. I can increase that number and I can decrease that number. So you can see that I'm moving this up and down, and I'm changing the value that I have here in my little data table. And because I associated this variable with this text field is always going to change. And once again, when we're prototyping, we can add to this value, we can subtract to this value, we can do so much with that, right? Let's go through, let's say we have another variable. Let's create a string. Now, a string is text, and that's what we refer to it in code as. So a string value, I'm going to say that this is like my item underscore name. So I have items in cart, I have an item name, and what I want to do is I want to associate the item name with what I have here. So let's give that item name. I'm just going to type in the word apple. I love associating fruits when I'm first trying these things out. So it's like a shopping cart item. That's great. So item name, apple. So now I can come to this text field that's right here, and I can use that same thing. I go to the design panel, I come down to my text, I click on that little icon, and you'll see it says, okay, do you want it to be items in cart? That would make it 17. You'll see that it retains the formatting. That's not what we want. We want to put in its item name. And now that I've set item name, you will see over there that the item name has been associated. So if I were to change this to orange, right, it's orange. If I was to change this here to mango, it's mango. So there's a direct relationship of this variable that is tied to this item here. And lastly, I can create another variable. This can be a color variable. So I'm going to pick a color here. And this color, let's say I wanted to associate it with a piece of my interface, and I'm going to say default, item BG, right? And it's going to be my default item BG. It's my background, my little item here. I can select that color, right? It can come over here. And here it's a little bit different. I'm going to go to libraries. And in my libraries, if you've worked with styles before, you'll see your styles. But up here, I have that variable that I just created, and there it is. So now if I make any changes to this, it's also going to update. So these are the 4 variable types that you have here in Figma, and you can use them to create data to populate your screens. And what's great is we're going to use this to make a more realistic experience for a shopping cart prototype. Let's do one more thing here just to kind of round this off. I'm going to create another variable. This one's going to be a number, and I'm going to say item underscore price. And it's a name this here, item underscore price. And I could put in a value. I can say $5.99. And so same thing here. You'll see that in this interface, I have a text field, and I'm going to associate item price, $5.99. So that is fantastic. Cool. So people are finding this awesome. Let's go. You'll see now that we're first begin to understand these values, right? And we have them here. But the problem is once you need another type of item, right? So we have mangoes and we have this value here, but let's say you want to add more items and associate those. And we're going to use modes, and we're going to start to begin to think about how we can create interactions to manipulate these items, right? I'm going to show you what a finished prototype can look like, and then we're going to start to walk through those steps to build that together. I'm going to come here to my finished example, right? This is referred to as the baked turkey, or here, my baked apples. And this is what we're going to make. When I click the plus sign, you'll notice that items on the screen are now visible that weren't previously, right? Because when there were no items, you can't yet go to the cart. So when I hit plus, we're making, the prototype aware that, wow, there's an item, and here there's one item, and you can look at the cart. And when we go to the cart, oh, we have one item and we have our price. So we're using this interplay of the variables to create this experience where I can now add more items. And then we can also use the math to say, oh, we have 4 apples times $2.99 plus 2 mangoes at $3.99, right? Equals 6 items at $19.94. So if you're a teacher out there, you're probably thinking this is going to be a great way to get students to begin to prototype. This is a good way to visually represent in a computer science class. Once again, you got variables, but now you can start to write what are known as expressions, and we can use conditionals too, right? And a conditional is, you'll see that if there's items, these are visible. If there's no items, they're no longer visible. You'll notice that I can't go into negative territory. So what we're going to do is we're going to write the logic to say, if there is more than one item, right, we're going to make this visible. And if there isn't, we're going to make it invisible. And we're going to write that logic into this prototype to make a realistic experience of what it might be to kind of program that cart. So you'll notice here, we're going to move over to the prototyping with modes and conditionals. I'm going to explain to you what modes are. And what modes are, and I'm going to show you just right off the bat, what modes are is a way to represent your variables and have them be applied to different objects. So we had one item that might have been our Apple item, and you'll have a name and it'll have a price, and it might have the number of itself in the cart. And we could show whether or not it has been selected for the cart, right? But then you have another product, and that's going to be mangoes, and it's going to have its own price. And we have to see whether or not it's in a cart. And we're going to basically say, okay, whether or not it has been selected. So if you're on a pro team, you have access to create at least 4 modes. So here in this prototype, I can make these 4 items. However, you can create as many variable collections as you want. And I'm going to show you how to make collections. So if you feel limited by the modes, you can create another collection and also use 4 modes. And you can create another collection and also use 4 modes. The way that modes are used, I will show you. It's typically used in product design to set a light mode or a dark mode. So what you want to think about for these UI cards, these little cards that we're going to be making, is you're going to have an apple mode and a mango mode. And we're going to be able to use that in our prototype to create these objects. All right, let's see if there's any questions. Is the local variables concept only applicable to a particular file? So variables can also be published to the team. So right here, these are going to be my local variables, but then when I go into publish library, I can send those out. Is mode same as a database table collection? Is mode similar to variant? So mode, I'll explain that concept really quickly. So here we might have 2 cards. This card is going to be a variant of this first one. This first card is going to be the item in the shopping cart. And then this might be in a different view where you might be in the checkout. So we can have a different variant, but we can have the same data shared across that variant. So the mode of this might be Apple mode, because the Apple mode is going to persist across both of those cards, right? This is still going to show an apple. This is still going to show an apple, but its view might be different. And you can articulate this in many different ways. Figma just kind of provides the framework for you to kind of decide what is best for you when you're beginning to structure these things out. So let's begin to kind of unpack that. I'm going to explain the concept of a collection. I'm going to show you how to create modes, and we're going to start to think about, how to really use these variables. So we've kind of already did this here where we're checking the in-cart count, right? We have this kind of plus and minus. That's actually where the majority of our interactions are going to take place. And then here we have the name and we have the price. So let's set that up. Let me just check here. All right, cool. So I'm going to click on my canvas. I'm going to come over here to local variables, right? And we're here in our first collection, right? Little did we know when we were setting up these variables to just kind of begin, we were working with our first collection, right? So what we can do is we can associate these same variables with this item that we have here. So I can select that text and I can set that to be the item name. I can select this and have that be the item price. I can select this here, and this will say items in cart, right? So we have all of these values, right? And here are all of them sort of represented. Let's even add this color that we have here, right? And we're going to set its color. Once again, so I'm going to go to libraries, default item BG. So we have all of our values here. I'm going to create, I'm also going to set this value right here. It says mode name. I'm going to just set that to mango again, right? So mango. I'm going to move it right there. So next, you can see we've already created these variables, right? It's basically what we had over here in our previous example. But now what we're going to do is we're going to add a new mode to this, right? And I'm going to rename this collection, and I'm going to call this example card, right? So this is our example card collection. We're going to create more collections when we work into that other prototype. So we're going to name this mode, right? Right here it says value, but what we're going to do is we're going to type in, mango card, right? So it's mango card mode. Now this plus button over here, you'll see when I highlight, says new variable mode. So we've already made the variables to populate that card. So now let's make the content for another card. So here I can set this now to Apple. We're going to call this our Apple card. Let's just say the items in cart, we're going to set that to 0. We're going to set its price, right? Let's set its price. Apple is really expensive. So let's say $6.99, right? And then let's set a color for that as well. So I'm going to make that like red. So we have these new values, right? And you'll see we have this mango card. I'm going to select it. I'm going to hold down the Option key. If you're on Windows, it's going to be the Alt key. And I'm going to just duplicate this down, right? So I just have a copy of that card and of that text sitting just beneath it. And now what I can do is with this all selected, I'm going to go over to the layer panel. And this is the important thing. This is the thing that tripped me up when I was first learning about this, is that here in the layer panel, when you hover over that little icon, it says change variable mode. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the mode from the mango card over to the Apple card. Let's click on that, and you'll see example card is the collection. And by default, it goes to mango card. And we're going to select that down and change it to Apple card. Now, when we change that layer mode, now all of the values are going to swap over. And there it is. All of the values swapped over. We now see that it's Apple. We have the color that we associated with there. Here, if I turn this on or off, oh, we didn't set that value yet. We will in just a moment. But you can see that this is now populating all of it, so we can set that. And one other thing that's really interesting, I just want to highlight your eyes over here in the left, is that on that layer, you will see the visualization of that being the Apple card, right? So if I go to my mango card and I go to its layer over here in the design panel, I can choose mango card. And as opposed to it just looking for the defaults, it'll now display its mode, right? So what's cool about this is when you swap out and change its mode, and you'll see example card, Apple card, we could change it to mango, right? We could change it back to Apple. It's pulling all of the values directly related to its mode. Okay, so it's pulling all of the values related to its mode to then populate it. So if I was to update this Apple, I go to 34 and you can see we have now 34. The one thing that I didn't set on here was I want to be able to set this little icon up here in the top right that's showing how much we have. I want to set that to either be true or false. I want it to use this layer on value, right? Let's give it a more meaningful name. Let's just say, selected, right? So this is our selected. And if it's selected, it'll be true. If not, it'll be false. So let's select that card. Let's go in here. We want to make sure there it is, amount. And once again, that one's a little bit weird. we can come over here, layer. I'm going to right click. You see that selected equals true. So now if I turn it off, you'll see that I select it false, it hides. And I select this one off, and it hasn't yet been set. So we want to make sure that we set that one as well. So I'm going to select that. We have the amount. We come over here to the layer. We right click. We just kind of give a little eye poke. And then we're going to choose selected equals false. There we go. So now we can see if it's true or false. And because each card has its own mode, it's pulling the variable to sort of represent that there. All right. So now let's start to think about how we're not just populating the data of the card, but we also want to create some math, right? We want some math to kind of take place. So here, I'm actually just going to delete that, and we're going to drop the little card that we have over here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to paste this. And what I'm going to do here as well, I'm going to select, that Apple card. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an interaction on the plus icon. So when we interact with that plus icon, it's going to increase this number. We're going to set the price here. What is the price? Once again, let's find it. Item price, it's $5.99. Right? And we're going to have this other value that's a total. And so we're going to add to that total. So let's make sure that this is in the right mode. So I've selected that value. And another thing that we can do is I can set the mode on a parent element, because these are inside of this frame. Let's say I select this here and I change, let's say I select this card. And I no longer want it to be an Apple card, right? Let's just say I set it to auto, right? So this is auto, this is auto, this is auto. I can scope it at a higher level. I can set this frame as being, Apple card. So now everything will change inside of here, right? So if I select that mode, change that to Mango card, you'll see that the price and everything updates. So let's just go to Apple card. I'm going to set the items in cart to 0. I'm going to set the items in cart to 0, and we're just going to create a basic interaction that's going to update this here. Now, that total is going to be a value that might be outside of the scope of here, right? We're not going to have a total for Mango card, for Apple card. We want a total price of everything. So let's create a new collection. I'm going to create a new collection. I'm going to call this collection checkout. And in here, I'm going to create a variable called, that is a number called total, right? So total, and this is its value. It's currently 0. I like to test it out. I'm going to put in the value of 6. I'm going to click this text field here. We're going to go over here in the design panel, in the text field. I'm going to apply a variable, and you'll see that we have our two collections here. We have our example card values, and then we have our checkout and our total value. And once again, if I were to just type in total, that variable is going to come right up to the top, and now I can set it to that text field. So then here, if I want to change that value back to 0, I can click on it and type in 0. So now we're getting to the prototyping part. I know it's 7:40, or I'm sorry, I'm not 7:40. It's about 40 after the hour, and we need to consider, like, all right, we're just getting into this prototyping part. There's a lot of setup, but there's a lot of payoff once everything works. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click on that prototyping tab. So I clicked on prototype. I can click this plus button. You might need to click a few times. So here I'm on my cart item, I double click again. I'm in the details, I double click again. It's in the cart account, and then I double click, and then I got my plus button. So, you can also command click, and I get right onto that plus icon. So I'm going to write interactions onto this plus icon. And the great thing about it, when we do it in the main cart, we're going to apply it at the main component definition, and it's going to magically bubble up to all of our components. So if you're working on a design system and you have an element that's going to be populating values, there's going to be some kind of like really fun extensibility there. So I'm going to select this item. I'm going to go over here to interactions, and on click, I want a new action to happen, right? You'll see we have set variable, we have conditionals, and those two are going to give you a lot of options. You're probably not going to see it if you are in a drafts file. So you want to make sure you put the file into your education team, right? So here on click, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a variable, right? And what I want to do is I want to add the item in cart. So I'm going to select items in cart. Oops. I'm going to set the variable items in cart, and I'm going to set it to a number. So right now we were setting our variables in our little data set, but now I'm going to set it dynamically live as the prototype goes. So I'm going to set items in cart, and I want to add to it. I want to iterate to it. So when items in cart equals 1, then I want to add 1 to 1. So then it'll be 2. Then when items in cart equals 2, I'm going to add 1 to that. So it'll be 3. So I'm going to set items in cart to items in cart plus 1. So what we're doing here, I can make that a little bit bigger, y'all. There we go. So I'm setting items in cart to itself plus 1. I'm iterating on that value, and I'm making it add and add upon itself, right? So we have set variable, and boom, we're doing that, right? This is the thing that we're doing. Now, after I've done that, I might need to set another variable. What's great about advanced prototyping is I can now have another action happen on top of this. We can create an entire series of interactions. So let's set another variable, and we're going to set the variable total, right? So total, and we're going to write this expression. We're basically going to say our items in cart, right? Multiply, right? It's a little asterisk sign. We can write what is known as an expression. So we're going to apply the math here. We're going to say items in cart multiply by the item price. So every time that we are, let me make sure I set that to total. There we go, total. Items in cart times item price. Let's see if I did that right. I'm doing a live stream. Sometimes these things don't work out, but let's see. I'm going to select modes. I'm going to press Shift space bar. Let's make that a little bit bigger. And as I add, you'll see that it's adding those values. So I just keep clicking. So you see 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, right? It's adding. We haven't set the -1 yet, but you can see this math happening in real time, which is great. Cool. Yeah, it's a lot of apples, right? So remember, this is going to be recorded and it will be shared out. So very, very powerful. Now let's take that same interaction and we're going to now subtract from it, right? So we can basically say, okay, like what is that value? Let's subtract that count. So here I can click on interactions. So now on click, I'm going to set the variable. I'm going to take items in cart and I'm going to set that to items in cart -1, right? So previously we were adding and now we are subtracting, right? So items in cart equals items in cart -1. Let's create another interaction here. Let's set another variable and we're going to subtract from that. So now we can update that total price once again, and it's going to be the same thing. We're going to use items in cart multiplied by the item price. So items in cart multiplied by that item price. So we have that expression and we're going to be subtracting. So when I hit Shift space bar, we're adding and now we're subtracting. And unfortunately, I can keep subtracting and going in the opposite direction, even though that's not really the way that shopping carts work. So what we need to do at this point is now create what is known as a conditional that's going to check that value as I subtract away from it. Okay. And another thing that we want to do too, you'll see this little nub up here, right? We want that to go away when there is none, when there's none in the cart. We want that to disappear. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a conditional. So I'm going to double click in. I'm going to select that minus. And here you can see that we're subtracting away from it, right? And here what we want to do is add in a conditional. So let's delete that one. I'm going to create actually, I don't even think, yeah. Let's add a new action. Let's add the conditional. And if the conditional came after the set variable, I can just, minimize it, and I could drag it above the other one, right? So you can drag and move these around because what is known as order of operations. What do you want to happen first? What do you want to happen second? What do you want to happen third? So I'm going to write this conditional. So if items in cart, right? We want to write this expression. If it is, right? As long as it is greater than, let's say 1, right? So as long as it's, let's even say, greater than or equal to 1. I kind of mess this part up. Let's see. If it's greater than or equal to 1, we can now perform an action. So an if statement is a logical statement. So if items in cart is greater than or equal to 1, what we're going to do is we're going to set the variable that is items in cart, and we're going to set it to itself -1. So what we're doing here is we're checking against items in cart. So we don't want it to go below 0. Right? We're trying to keep it gated above 0. So we're going to allow it to subtract all the way down. So if item is greater than or equal to 1, then we will allow it to subtract, right? Cool. So as long as that's going to happen, we're going to subtract. Let's see that in motion. So if I hit minus, you see it doesn't go below that, but I can hit plus, and I can hit minus. And what I'm doing is I'm gating, I'm kind of like stopping it from going lower, right? And I'm bringing that down. Now, how are we doing on time? We got some good time. We got some time. Now, as I'm decreasing that, let's see, here we go, my conditional. We can also write an else statement. So as long as it is larger, right? Like that's great. We're going to keep it there. So as long as the items is greater than or equal to 1, otherwise we could do something else. But what I can also do is I can just write an entire other conditional, and I can say here, let's create another conditional. I'm going to move this conditional just above our set variable. I'm going to uncollapse it, and I'm going to say if items in cart equals, right? And you're going to put in a double equals. It's a comparison operator, right? So you'll see that if items in cart is equal to, all of the different operations that you can calculate here, you can see equal to, not equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So we're going to see if it is equal to, and I can even choose less than or equal to if you believe that it might accidentally go below there. What we can do is we can set that selected value. We're going to set selected. And what we're going to do is if it is less than or equal to 0, we're going to add an action, and we're going to set the variable of selected, and we're going to set that variable to false, right? So there it is. So if it is 0, we're going to set it to false. Otherwise, we can set it selected to true. Oops, to true. There we go. So now what we're going to do is we're basically going to set that value of selected. And since its default value is actually going to be off, right, we can come over here. I'm going to click on the canvas. I'm going to click on local variables. I'm going to go to my example card example here, and we're going to set that by default to false. And when we do, it's gone, right? It's still here. If you look in your layers panel, you'll find it, right? There's a little eyeball, it's closed. But what we're doing is, when we add, Oh, and that's actually a funny thing because you'll notice that it works on minus, but it doesn't work on plus. So we need to make sure that we're setting that value on plus as well. So here I can go back to my plus interaction. Let's go to prototype. And you'll see when I click on the plus, I can also set, let's see, set a variable of selected to true. Because whenever you're hitting plus, there's always an item in the cart. So you don't even need to write a conditional for that. So plus 1, 2, 3, 4. And now when we hit subtract, and then it disappears. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it goes all the way back, and then it disappears. All right, cool. Any questions? Let's see. All right. Awesome. I think y'all are like feeling this. Great, great, great. Okay. Next, I have this whole example here. My next study hall course. So I have these videos, they're on YouTube and they're called study halls. I'm going to walk through the creation of this entire cart. So be on the lookout for that. Until I do, I'm going to walk you through the complexities of this and how to put it together. So basically, if you have a more advanced prototype, this is kind of like the start file. I will include the finished one and how that works in that study hall because we're coming up close on time and I do want to provide question and answers. So you'll see here that for each interaction, what I do is in Figma, you can just work things on the canvas. So what I like to do is I will take a screenshot of all of my actions, but I write them out as pseudocode. So when you write them out as pseudocode, you can begin to kind of articulate how the things are happening. So I'm just going to walk you through as we're closing out here today, what this example entails and what are some of the interactions that are taking place. I'm going to show you to how to kind of like update that total price. Actually, before I do so, I just want to show you here that this mode, if I were to, let's say, add another mode here, hold on, let's go. This is where we were. If I was to take this whole frame, I'm going to hold down the option key. I'm going to drag it here. If I set this to mango mode, right, and I run this mango prototype, let's have that load. Here, let me try that one more time. See, I'll hit play. I know it wants to open up. It wants to be my friend. There we go. You can see that now we have our mango values, right? So we have our mango values. And then likewise, if I wanted to create yet again another mode, I'm going to go to my local variables. I'm going to create another mode, and this can be pineapple. And that's false. That's 0. We're going to name this pineapple. And then here, let's give it a new color, right? A pineapple, we'll make it green and we'll set a price for that for like $6.99. 6.99. And there we go. Cool, cool, cool. So I can duplicate that once more, just so you can kind of see it all kind of pan out, right? So this mode, I can now set that as my pineapple card. And you'll see that pineapple card is now fully updated. And as I go to my local variables, I can give this, let's say, $9.99. You know, so when I run and I select this frame, I run that prototype, it will show the pineapple examples, right? And it has that total and it works. So it's cool is that you can kind of iterate on this and kind of grow this in a way that it becomes interesting. So when you look at this final example here, which like I mentioned, I'm going to make a full on, it's probably going to be about a 40-minute video. I'm going to put it on Figma's YouTube. I just need to get back and spend a little bit of time. I wanted to see how y'all were reacting to this one here. And I can tell that you're really thirsty for this content, so I'm happy to provide it. I'm going to select this menu button here. I'm going to go to prototype. Let's take a look at once again what is happening. So here now I have 3 objects that each have their own mode. If you're wondering how I put the images in there, the images are just a matter of placing them. So instead of those colors, I can hit command / I can place image. And here I just happen to have those 3 images. So I just click on that shape in that interface to make them. That's the only thing that I did there. So here in this finished example, what I'm doing is I create a little scroll interaction, and as soon as I'm adding them, right, I'm adding and updating all of the items in the cart. And if they're selected, they show up in this cart and they show total items and the total price. So now I can come back here, and let's say if I remove a few, and you'll see that that's now updated. We're using the Booleans, we're using the numbers, we're using all of those different variables to kind of create the experience of this. Now, the only thing that we didn't really get to cover is how to access the mode. And I'll show you right here. I'm just going to pull up on this plus symbol. I'm going to show you how I calculate the total price. The total price, what I'm able to do is select the mode of, or the variable within the mode. So I'm basically able to add in all the values. So like, I'll show you here how I write out that total price when you have multiple of those objects in the same frame. So here, what I want to do is I'm going to say items. Right here, you can see I have my cart items. So I have my in-cart count, but I want the in-cart count of apples. So if I press the back key, you'll see that I can now select the mode, right? I just have to click on this variable, and if it has a mode, I can choose it. So I can say, oh, here, I want my in-cart count of apples to multiply by, right, my price right here, and I can click on that of my apples, right? So in-cart count of apples multiplied by the price, and I can hit plus. So I'm writing this expression, and it's going to honor the order of operations. So apples multiplied by the price. Then I can say in-cart count, and I can choose by clicking on it and get the mode of mangoes, right? So we got mangoes multiply by the price, and I have the price, and we can click on that of the mangoes. And so I'm writing out this expression plus the in-cart count of, let's see what we have here, the in-cart count by clicking back or typing right there of pineapple, right? Multiply by the price of pineapple. And that is how the expression gets run. So you're able to access and the specific value within the mode to create that total value. So now when I run this, right, and because I applied that on the component itself, that bubbles up to all of these. So this card right here, I don't need to put the interactions on every single card. It's on the main component, right? And then it gets applied to those instances. And essentially, once you're doing that, it should update. And that is updating the total items and the total price. And as I mentioned, there will be more content. We're going to dig into this concept a little bit further. I just wanted to cover how to access these things. It can try to demystify some of them. So feel free to check out some of the other pages. If you haven't, take a look at using variables in Prototype 101. And how are we doing, Alex?
Hey, Miggy, it seems like you answered a lot of questions while we were moving. And so I actually think it makes more sense to wrap up. But before everybody goes, I just dropped a feedback survey so y'all can give us feedback on this session and also propose ideas for the next session. I'm also going to drop in a link that allows you to sign up for our next workshop. So Miggy is going to be running these workshops every single month. So please go ahead and register for the next one if you loved what you saw today. And again, please leave us that feedback because we'd love to know how we did and how we can make this better for you in the future. Over to you, Migs, to close us out.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. So I will be sharing the finished prototype with this. I'll be uploading that into the Figma community so you can take a look through that and be able to kind of work it out on your own as well. So make sure you check out the file in the community. Thank you so much for joining from all over the world, whatever time it is. Make sure you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening. I hope you all get some rest and have a fantastic weekend. So once again, thank you so much.
Hey, Miggy, you started the webinar, so I think you might have to close us out.
Okay. All right. Take care, everybody. Hope to see you soon.